week even. This is not the same as a Zoom call at all. So I am going to, first of all, I just want to say that this is my 4th Ruby retreat. My first time I was a Ruby, the second 2 times I was a senior Ruby. Yeah, and then now I'm back as an Emerald. And so I share that because all of this is all of the struggle and things that I've gone through is for you guys just to know that you don't have to be perfect and that you can still get to where you need to go. So I'm gonna pull a Christina and I am going to change my title because when I wrote the title, I hadn't written everything else. So I am calling this, the new title is Beat Shame to Get Through the Valley of Despair. Okay, so, repeat, okay, beat shame to get through the valley of despair. So we talked about the valley of despair, Christina went over that, and I have spent my fair share of time in the valley of despair, and I'm gonna tell you more specifically. So I started 4.5 years ago. It took me 4.5 years to get to Emerald, okay? So, and that's not like, nobody is looking at that and is like, oh my gosh, that was so amazing. You know, but it is amazing because I didn't quit and I wanted to quit and I did the work that I needed to do to get where I wanted to go, right? So, I thought it was so interesting when Christina had us pull up our numbers. I am not a numbers girl, like at all. That probably has not served me at all the past 5 years. But in March 2019, my points were at 689. March 2020, my points went down to below Ruby points at 487. And March 2021, I was at 1991. So anything can happen, right? So you just have to keep on growing and pushing through. So when I think about really what has been my biggest obstacle, it's not you know the deployments necessarily, or you know the gossip, or you know all the struggles. It's not that. It's the shame that I felt that kept me stuck. And I have a little bit of a perfectionist side, and I can be critical. And I think a lot of us we're high performers, right? We're high achievers. You wouldn't be here if you weren't. So, and we tend to be like that. We tend to be critical of ourselves and hold ourselves to a really high standard. So I wanted to start off with a Brene Brown quote. On my team, we talk about Brene Brown like the Freedom Team talks about Uncle Johnny. And so Brene Brown says, shame is the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. And so if you felt that it's a pretty good description of what shame is. And the fact is we all experience shame, no matter who you are. There was a point where I would have told you, no, I didn't have shame. I didn't really know what that was. Like, no, I don't think I experienced shame, I'm good. But she also says shame corrodes the very part of us that believes we are capable of change. And so shame affects your belief in yourself, belief that you're worthy of love and belonging. And I think we're all here right now because we want to belong, right? We all want to belong, but it feels so good. And I'm so glad that this is day 2 because I feel like I've talked to you guys enough now where I'm like, okay, these are my friends. I feel like I can be real. So I'm going to just put it all out there. I'm going to start a little bit. 4.5 years ago, I started the products. They rocked my health. And I started to have a little bit of hope, you know, that maybe I could share, you know, get my products paid for. And what I really wanted was I wanted to get my family off of WIC. I had been on WIC since I was 18 years old. And that is really where a lot of my shame started. At 18, I was a teen mom. So I've always resonated with Brittany's story. And I think when you are a teen mom, in our culture especially, I remember I got pregnant and then the show Teen Mom came out. So that was not in my advantage at all. So that's really where my shame started. You know, I was a single mom for 2 years before I ended up marrying my high school sweetheart. He was just trying to, he just was very persistent. So, and he joined the Army and found his faith and all of that. And meanwhile, I had found my faith. And all I needed was to be there for my son, and I had Jesus, and I was good, But I still felt shame. I remember putting a ring on my wedding finger at church, so I could kind of, and I didn't see that as shame at the time. I just, looking back on it, I was like, man, that was kind of sad that I did that, But I didn't want to I never felt judgment really, but it was just me. It was my shame. It was not other people. It was me. And so that kind of has trickled into, the rest of my life, unless you expose your shame and you face it head on, then it tends to just kind of be there inside, rotting away at you and surfacing at inopportune times. So 4.5 years ago, I started coming into the business, I had a lot of growth. I was 26 years old, with 3 kids, military family, and I really, really needed something for me. I sacrificed for years and years and years for my husband's career so that he could pursue what he wanted, and I was still being a single mom a lot at my house, with my husband. I was like, I married him because I didn't want to be a single mom, so this was not the right gig for me at all. So, but I needed something for me, but I had so much. I never posted on Facebook because I was very concerned about what people would think about me. I was concerned with my image. I didn't want to annoy people. I had all of these things to work through, and so really, I just started sharing. I had to pray about it. If it wasn't for the Lord literally confirming 3 times in the most blatant, a prophetic word, and just the craziest, I had to get a whole word from a guy at church for me to believe that I should start this. So I was, that has been really the fuel at the end of the day, which has kept me going, knowing that the Lord has called me to this, and this is where He wants to use me. So, as a shiny new ambassador in that blissful, uninformed optimism, I started to have hope, for our family, that we could actually go on trips, all of these things, that I could build something for myself that I could be proud of, and so I started all of that, and it was good at first, right? It's always good at first, and then it gets to the point where the rubber meets the road, and you have to really grow and really work on yourself. And so, as I was kind of a slow grower, obviously. So I would stop and start my business. I would work my business, and then I would kind of take a break, and then I would work my business and take a break. But I still had a lot of belief, that this was what I was meant to do. And what I needed to do. So, when I got to Senior Ruby, we were so broke when I started that. When I got to Senior Ruby, I felt like I was balling. I am not money driven. I am experiences driven. I want to have fun. I want to have a good time. And as a 7, I want to avoid, an Enneagram 7, our thing is we want to avoid pain at all costs. If it's causing pain, I want to run away from that and go have some fun somewhere else. And so that's been something that I've had to face on because leaders aren't avoiders, right? And so that is something I tell myself all the time. Leaders are not avoiders. You can't avoid the work. You can't avoid the messages. And what if somebody has something bad to say? And the naysayers at this group and that group and your family, it causes pain, and you have to push through all of that. So at Senior Ruby, I started to get comfortable. It's probably why I spent 2 years at Senior Ruby. But really when I started to battle my own shame was in 2019. My marriage started crumbling. We were at the lowest of the low. Our whole lifestyle was just incredibly stressful. I didn't want to do it anymore. It was my why to get him out of the Army because it was just so stressful and so hard on our relationship. But in 2019, We were at like a breaking point. And as we were at that point, really working on our marriage and counseling, all that, he was about to deploy. And that same month, I was pushing for Emerald. This was back in 2019. I was pushing for Emerald the same month that he deployed, and I self-sabotaged myself. Like, I went on vacation, like pre-deployment vacation. Like, you don't do that if you're going Emerald that month. Like, you don't go on pre-deployment vacation for like a week. And so anyways, that crumbled, and then our relationship was so wasn't steady at all, and then he was gone for 8 months, and I was left just to pick up the pieces and be myself. And so I went into this really difficult season where I started having debilitating anxiety every day. I literally couldn't breathe. And so I went and got personal counseling. I got on medication. Because I just couldn't get through the days. And my kids, I've got 3 boys, and they were at really wild stages. You know how some seasons of parenting, it's like, that was a really hard season, then it got a little bit, and then it got hard again. So anyways, that's how everything is, really. And so for a good chunk of that deployment, I pretty much just checked out of my business. I went into a very, very, very low level of management mode, posting inconsistently, not showing up in my chats consistently. I had my workers going to Courtney, working with Courtney, and that caused me a lot of shame. And I'm here to say that if you really just get into that, it will keep you stuck. If you tell yourself all the time how unworthy of your position you are, I suck, I shouldn't even be doing this, like my people aren't even coming to me, like I'm not a good leader, that's not going to get you anywhere good at all. It will produce no fruit in your life. So that's pretty much where I was at that in 2019. But I knew that I just had to do the work, right? I knew that I had to get myself into a healthy place. And so through counseling, like counseling at my church, I had a really great counseling, and just that in that season, what I needed to do was just to get out of really work on my mindset. So my points got down really low, and my paycheck started going down really low, and I was like, I had like a major, wake up call. My husband came home, we worked on our marriage, like we have pulled ourselves out of that, thank God. But what I want to say, I want to share with you guys kind of how I got out of that. What I really started to do. So what I want to say, number one, is shame keeps you paralyzed, and so you have to get help, and you have to take care of yourself. You need to get the help you need and work on your mindset, right? And so what I did to start getting unstuck was I started realizing and doing the work that, this caused me so much pain. Why would I want to keep on doing this when I felt so much pain over it every single day? And so what I did was I wrote down my pain points on my mirror in my bathroom, where I read it every single day when I took a bath, because I'm a bath girl and I love just taking baths. So while I was in the bath, I would read through my pain points, which was not that relaxing, but top to bottom pain points. And I got really real with myself and wrote, if I don't work my Plexus business, then. Not if I quit, because I decided that I was never going to quit, and I burned all of my other boats, and I dropped out of college. So it was like, I have to keep going. I already burned my other boats. What else am I going to do? I have all these people on my team who are on fire, and I'm just over here doing God knows what. So I wrote down all my pain points, and I wrote down, like, if I don't work my Plexus business, we will not be able to travel the world. We will not be able to go to Disney World. I told my kids I was going to take them to Disney World when I hit Emerald, and we won't be able to do that. We won't have the money. We'll never have the freedom. I will have wasted my potential. I will have wasted my time, and I will have let a lot of people down. And I did not want to let my people down, and I didn't want to forfeit my right to inspire and pour into people who deserves to be here right now. I don't know if some of the people on my team would be here right now if I had just just threw it all away. So I wrote that down and I would read through it every day, and I started to really get in my mind, like, it's so much more painful to not work my business than it is to work my business. I can handle all of, the messages. I can handle all of these things. And so I started to replace my shame with the truth. So I also wrote down the things that were true about me and the things that I was capable of. I decided that I was going to start showing up as an emerald, and that my points would eventually catch up. And at that point, my points were at like ruby points. And so I decided I'm gonna take my leadership back. I'm gonna start showing up. I'm gonna be real. I am going to just get in front of my people again, and that's what I did. I started just showing up and talking to my people and just being honest of where I had been, and said, hey, I wasn't who I needed to be, and I'm sorry, and I'm here now. And you basically, you don't get a whole lot of chances to do that, So, if you haven't showed up the way you need to, just be real with your people and take full ownership of where you've been. And, they need that. They need that vulnerability. They need that, authenticity from you and to take ownership. So anyways, I also, back to what I was saying, I wrote down the truths about myself. So I had all of these negative things in my mind about, that I was feeding myself, that I was not a good leader, that I sucked, and all of this. And so I started saying, I am capable of being an emerald. I show up like an emerald. I am focused. I am joyful. I love doing this. I started feeding myself the truth, and that's what I would encourage you guys to do. If you ever experience shame, is get a note, open up a note in your phone, that when you start experiencing this shame, you can look back on make a list of 10, 15, I have 30 things in my list, 31 things, reasons why I'm proud of myself and things that I like about myself. And so when I start to say I suck and I'm disorganized and I start to get into this shame place, I go back and I remind myself